G'day footy heads, welcome to another edition of Behind the Play. I'm Dave Sabina, and this week I'm joined by my co-host Sean Budge. How are you, mate?
Super excited, Dave. Big 10 days worth of football coming up, and of course all starts this weekend, doesn't it?
Exactly right, mate. It's preliminary final weekend, the biggest week in football, bar to the grand final. 4 teams, 2 spots up for grabs, 1 prize. It doesn't get much bigger than this.
Certainly doesn't, but before we start talking about the biggest prize of all, 2 teams have got to get there, don't they? Be absolute ecstasy for the 2 that do, heartbreak for the 2 that don't, and just questions of what could have been, really.
Absolutely, mate. And it all kicks off Friday night with the Bulldogs and the Saints. We're across now to Dan and Corey at the Whitten Oval. How are we, boys?
Good, thanks, guys. We're here at the Whitten Oval, and we were joined by 300 or 400 die-hard fans. They believe they can do it. They believe they can beat the Saints this week in the prelim, and they think they can make the grand final for the first time in 50-odd years. Corey, if they're going to do it, they're going to have to step it up a cog, though, against your boys, the Saints.
Definitely, Dan. Look, the Doggies were respectable against the Lions last week without being ultra impressive, but you're dead right. They will need to step it up a number of cogs to match it with the Saints. They'll need everyone firing on all cylinders, including Ryan Griffin, who sustained that calf injury last Friday night. Good news for Doggies fans, Griffin completed the entire session today with the main group and appears a certainty to line up against the Saints, but they will need Griffin and a number of their other midfielders firing on all cylinders to match it with Hayes and Goddard and Del Santo and Montagna, because there's a few names there from the Saints that could really cut them up.
And all those boys have been having their feet up for the last week. They've been resting. There's great preparation going in the prelim.
Right, Dan, perfect preparation for the Saints. Brilliant win over the Pies. Now 12 days to get it right. They've been to the prelim for the 4th time in 6 years. I would expect nothing less than a relentless performance from St Kilda come Friday night, and I think this time they might just get it right.
And what about your man, Nick Riewoldt? He's had his feet up. He's the most important man in your team. He's looking pretty good.
Rory has looked pretty proppy for a number of weeks now, but it doesn't appear to have inhibited his performance too much. Kicked 6 against Melbourne, Dan, and then followed it up with 5 goals and a dominant performance against the Pies in the first final. Look, Rory's probably the Dogs' biggest headache this week. How do they stop him? I don't know. 22 marks and 16 shots a goal in the 2 games against the Dogs this year. In that time, Morris, Lake and Williams have each had a crack, but to no avail.
Now, we all know Cosy and Riewoldt can kick the goals for the Saints, but who have the Bulldogs got? They don't have a big powerhouse forward like the Saints do.
No, definitely not. It's been a weakness of the Dogs in the past and has cost them in finals before. In any sport, when the pressure's heaped on, your weaknesses do get exploited, and that's been the case with the Dogs. Look, Dan, to kick a winning score for the Dogs, they're going to need the Murphys, the Johnsons, the Ackers, the Higgins to each kick multiples, and I think that'll be a pretty difficult task.
Now, contested ball, Corey. St Kilda are a very hard team at the ball. I don't know if the Bulldogs can match it with them. What do you think?
I'm not sure they can. The Saints are renowned for winning the contested ball stakes, and that will be vital come Friday night. Look, the Dogs have been exploited in this area as well in the past. The Cats did it to them early in week 1 of the finals, and it's just something the Doggies are going to have to knuckle down come Friday night upon.
Now, tagging. Will Clinton-Jones go to Adam Cooney? The last couple of times he stitched him up. Do you reckon it'll happen again?
Look, yeah, I think Jonesy will go to Cooney again. Look, Cooney has found a bit of the footy against the Saints this year on 2 occasions, but in both games has had minimal impact on the game. So, look, you'd think they'd stick with Jonesy again, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd say so, definitely. Now, St Kilda. Who are the Bulldogs going to tag St Kilda players? They've got 3 absolute superstars. Del Santo, Montagna, Hayes. Who's going to stop them?
Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of them. And don't forget Goddard. Look, the Dogs can't afford to have the Del Santos and Montagnas just freewheeling up and down the flanks all night, because they will cut them to ribbons. I'd say Cross will probably go to Del Santo, as he has in the past, and maybe a young Liam Picken to Montagna to try and curb his influence. But yeah, look, you're right. I think there's too many to stop.
Now, the Bulldogs. No injuries, no excuses.
No, definitely no excuses for the Dogs. They had Murphy and Higgins on light duties today, as were Minston and Hahn, but there doesn't appear to be any major concerns for any of them for Friday night's game. As we already mentioned, Griffin got through the entire session, doesn't appear to be hampered by that calf whatsoever. So as you already said, Dan, no excuses for the Dogs come Friday night. They just simply need to get the job done.
Well, that's the latest from the Whitten Oval, guys, but for now, it's back to you, boys.
Thanks, boys. Now we're back here at the G for Collins' train session. Now it's a big clash with the Cats on Saturday night, Sean.
Certainly is, but before we get into that, we've got James standing by with this week's training report.
Let's cross to him now.
Rodney Eade and his Bulldogs hit the track today looking for the best possible preparation to seal the club's first grand final appearance since 1961. The man they call Rocket is no stranger to grand final week, having been an ever-present fixture during his time at the Hawks in the mid-80s. He is well aware of the task that faces his charges, having failed to overcome the Saints in either of their 2 meetings this season. He would be hoping that lessons have not only been learned from those 2 defeats, but also the Bulldogs' preliminary final heartbreak from just a year ago.
Oh, we certainly know some areas that we need to improve on. I suppose that's a good thing. That we're under no illusions where we're at. Certainly against them, I mean, they've proved themselves to be the best team this year.
Midfielders Cross and Boyd both face the media, weary of the expectation on their team. Cross outlined his recovery from an ankle injury which threatened to derail his season. The star stopper admitted the treatment administered by a state-of-the-art ice machine known as the Game Ready had forced his partner to take a back seat for the time being.
Yeah, I had it in the bed, and Sam, she's taken a side. She took a side seat for a while, and I'm still using it now. So we'll get her back in once the season's over.
But I'm sure Sam and all of the West's support will be behind the Bulldogs come this Friday night.